Beneath the restless skin of the Pacific, where sunlight dies and memory fades, lies a world so deep, so silent. It seems less like part of Earth and more like the echo of another universe. Here, pressure crushes steel, darkness swallows all light, and yet life persists, fragile, alien, unyielding. The Mariana Trench, a wound in the planet's surface, plunging deeper than Everest is tall, a place where humanity has barely touched the edges of eternity. But what calls us to such places? What compels us to stare into the black unknown, into a night that has no stars? Is it fear or wonder? Perhaps both. For in this abyss, every secret we uncover reminds us of how little we know and how much waits beyond reach. Tonight, we descend together into silence, into pressure, into the eternal night where creatures without names drift in a cathedral of darkness. This is not just the story of the trench. It is the story of our own smallness, our hunger to seek, our refusal to turn away from mystery before we dive. Remember, mysteries like these demand witnesses. If this journey grips you, let the world know. Like, share, and subscribe, so that the voices of the deep may rise into the light. And now, the descent begins. The ocean begins with light. On the surface, it is a place of brilliance, waves catching the sun in fragments, scattering it across an endless horizon. The Pacific stretches in every direction, alive with the shimmer of day, a vast mirror reflecting both sky and storm. Here, the sea feels eternal, but familiar, the kind of eternity that cradles sailors, wanderers, and dreamers alike. Yet beneath this glittering skin lies a threshold, a doorway into something far more profound, the mouth of the earth itself. As the vessel drifts above the trench, the world beneath begins to shift. From shades of turquoise and cobalt, the water deepens, swallowing light like a cathedral swallowing sound. The shallows give way to depths where no sunlight has ever reached, where no color remains. It is here that the Mariana Trench reveals itself not as a feature of the ocean floor, but as a scar upon the planet, a wound carved by tectonic forces older than humanity itself. Imagine a canyon so deep that Mount Everest, placed within it, would vanish without a trace, its summit still 2 kilometers below the surface. This is the abyss we are about to enter. The descent is not sudden. It is gradual, like falling through time. At a few hundred meters, the last colors of the surface fade into a blue so dark it feels infinite. Fish dart past, silver glimmers, catching what remains of the sun's reach, as if reluctant to let go. The sound changes too. The familiar splash of waves against hull becomes muffled. A silence begins to gather, a silence so thick it feels alive, pressing against every thought. Explorers who make this journey often describe it as crossing into another world, above the earth we know, below a place where rules bend, where certainty dissolves. Even the air inside the submersible feels altered. Each meter downward strips away a layer of the familiar, until all that remains is the steady hum of machinery and the quiet pulse of a human heart daring to trespass. At 1,000 meters, twilight vanishes entirely. The ocean becomes absolute night. Outside the viewing glass, there is nothing but a curtain of black. Yet within this blackness, small miracles begin to stir. Flickers of bioluminescence, creatures sculpted by evolution to carry their own stars, drift like ghostly lanterns in a void. Some flash in bursts, like underwater fireflies. Others glow steadily, pale blue and green, painting soft trails in the current. For the first time, the abyss reveals a glimpse of its hidden kingdom. The trench does not simply fall, it yawns. Its walls are sheer, jagged with ridges and scars, carved by millennia of collision between plates of stone. The Pacific Plate dives beneath the Philippine Plate here, creating the deepest point on Earth. It is a place born of violence, yet sustained in silence. To peer into it is to gaze into the memory of the planet itself. Each rock, each grain of sediment, carries the story of ages, but stories require listeners. And here, in this endless black, we are reminded of our own fragility. The human body is not built for such depths. Pressure multiplies with every passing meter, building, crushing, until it exceeds thousands of times the weight we know on land. A single breach in the submersible's hull would mean instant collapse. Yet, even with this threat pressing against the walls, explorers continue downward, pulled by something greater than fear, the lure of the unknown. At 2,000 meters, the abyss begins to whisper, not in sound, but in sensation. The darkness grows heavier, thicker, as if the water itself resists intrusion. Shapes drift at the edge of vision, long shadows that move without haste, without urgency, as though time itself has slowed. Here, life does not rush, it endures. And as we descend further, one truth becomes undeniable. The trench is not empty. It waits, patient, eternal, indifferent, a mouth that never closes, a silence that never ends. To enter it, a realm that simply is. At 3,000 meters, the abyss begins to strip away all sense of scale. Without landmarks, without light, the mind struggles to measure distance. What lies just beyond the glass could be inches away, or a vast canyon stretching for miles. It is a disorienting silence, one that bends perception until every movement feels suspended, as though we have slipped not only beneath the sea, but outside of time itself. Pressure grows with relentless patience, wrapping the vessel in unseen fists. Outside, each square inch bears the weight of nearly 3 tons. It is impossible to imagine, impossible to feel, and yet it surrounds us, constant, immovable. A reminder that we are trespassers in a kingdom not made for breath or bone. And yet, even here, life persists. Strange forms drift from the blackness, luminous threads and glimmers, painting fleeting constellations across the void. Transparent jellyfish trail ribbons of light, like the brushstrokes of invisible painters. Lanternfish flash their signals in cryptic rhythms, communication written in brief sparks. Some creatures flare bright and vanish, as if testing the boundaries of night, while others linger in steady glow, drifting like ancient stars. Each light is a message. We are here, even in darkness. The trench itself begins to open, its floor sinking away into slopes and cliffs that stretch down into unseen depths. Imagine standing at the rim of a mountain range at night, unable to see its peaks, only feeling the vastness beneath your feet. That is the sensation here. The Mariana is not a single line downward, but a labyrinth of ridges, valleys, and plunges, carved by forces older than memory. At 4,000 meters, explorers speak of a profound stillness, a stillness that seeps into thought, into heartbeat, until silence itself becomes the loudest sound. This is the bathypelagic zone, the midnight layer of the sea. Here, no sunlight has ever reached, no seasons touch. It is a world without dawn or dusk, ruled only by darkness and pressure. And yet, predators patrol these waters. The black dragonfish, its skin dark as coal, drifts with jaws lined by teeth like glass. It carries its own light beneath its chin, luring the unwary into its waiting mouth. Gulper eels stretch their bodies to grotesque proportions, mouths opening wide enough to swallow prey larger than themselves. Even here, where scarcity rules, life has found ways not just to endure, but to hunt, to thrive. The deeper we move, the more alien these forms become. Some fish glow red, a color invisible to most deep-sea eyes, granting them a cloak of hidden light. Others carry eyes so sensitive they can catch the faintest spark from miles away. Adaptation is the law here, written not in comfort, but in survival against impossible odds. At 5,000 meters, the trench reveals its walls again. Jagged cliffs rise on either side, sharper than any canyon on land, their slopes covered in fine sediment that drifts like powdered ash. Now and then, faint tremors ripple through the stone, reminders that this trench was born of collision, of one plate of the earth diving beneath another, its hunger eternal. These are living mountains, still shifting, still reshaping the face of the planet in silence. Inside the vessel, time feels fractured. Minutes stretch into hours. Hours dissolve into the unbroken rhythm of descent. There is no sunrise to measure by, no starlight to break the black, only the slow fall, the hum of instruments, and the occasional flicker of something alive beyond the glass. It is a meditation in darkness, an enforced stillness that strips the mind bare. Some explorers say that at these depths, they felt not fear, but a strange calm, as if the trench, with all its silence and weight, erases the noise of the world above. Down here, politics, wars, ambitions, they mean nothing. Only the abyss remains unchanging, unmoved, and so the journey presses on, deeper still. Ahead lies the Hadal Zone, the true kingdom of the abyss, where the trench opens into its most secret chambers. What waits there is not just life, but revelation, glimpses of a world untouched by sunlight, a reminder that Earth still holds places beyond imagination. The mouth of the earth is open. We are not yet at its throat. At 6,000 meters, the descent enters a realm few have dared to imagine. This is the threshold of the Hadal Zone, a name borrowed from Hades himself, the ancient kingdom of the dead. Here, the world above is not just distant. No storm can reach this deep. No sunlight has ever broken the veil. It is an environment so hostile, so unrelenting, that for centuries it was believed to be barren, a wasteland of silence. But the abyss, as always, defies expectation. The walls of the trench close in again, steeper, darker, more jagged than before. They plunge downward into crevices where even the vessel's lights struggle to touch. Sediments drift in slow cascades, falling like ghostly snow, layer upon layer, burying the memories of the ocean above. Each particle may be centuries old, a fragment of mountains, rivers, forests long vanished. The trench is not only a scar, it is an archive, recording the passage of time, grain by grain. Outside the glass, life glimmers faintly. Strange amphipods, small, shrimp-like creatures, drift in swarms. Their translucent bodies adapted to withstand pressures that would obliterate steel. They feed on the falling snow of organic debris, recycling the remnants of life from higher waters into the foundation of a hidden food chain. Even here, in a place of supposed lifelessness, an ecosystem breathes quietly, patiently, but not all is delicate. Some shapes in the dark move with unsettling power. A 6-foot-long snailfish, pale and gelatinous, drifts close, its body designed not for speed, but endurance. Its bones are reduced, its skin soft, its organs built to resist pressure instead of collapse beneath it. Look at it is to see life stripped to its essence, adapted with brutal efficiency to a world that was never meant to allow it. The silence here deepens. It is no longer the silence of distance, but the silence of something absolute. A silence that presses not only against the vessel, but against the mind, drawing explorers inward. In this endless night, the boundary between self and world blurs. Every sound inside a breath, a heartbeat, the quiet whir of machinery feels amplified, echoing in the void. Some describe it as claustrophobia, others as a kind of reverence the trench floor approaches, but only in fragments. Light reveals slopes that vanish into chasms, ridges that crumble into nothingness, valleys deeper still. It is a place that refuses to be measured, as though the earth itself is determined to keep some secrets hidden. Instruments can calculate the depth, but the eyes see only blackness, swallowing blackness at 7,000 meters. The pressure outside exceeds 1,000 times that of the atmosphere at sea level. It is a number so immense it loses meaning. To imagine it is to imagine an entire mountain range pressing down upon your chest. Yet here, in this impossible weight, organisms endure without hesitation. For them, this is not an extreme. This is normal. The vessel continues downward. Each passing meter feels like a trespass, a step deeper into a temple where humanity was never meant to walk. Yet we go on. Because to witness the abyss is not simply to explore, it is to confront the very limits of what life and what humanity can endure. Outside, a glow flickers. Not bright. A colony of luminous organisms clings to a ridge, shining like embers caught in stone. It is the first hint that the Hadal Zone, for all its silence, is alive in ways we barely comprehend. Perhaps these lights are signals, perhaps they are lures, or perhaps they are reminders that life, in its stubborn persistence, finds a way even in the deepest shadows. The walls of the trench rise higher around us, the canyon narrowing, then opening again in sudden vastness. It feels less like descent now, and more like being swallowed whole. Each turn reveals new darkness, each slope a doorway to depths unseen. The trench has no end in sight, only a path further and further into its eternal night and still. We descend at 8,000 meters. The abyss feels less like a descent and more like surrender. Each passing moment is a reminder that we have entered a place where human presence is unnatural, fragile, even absurd. The walls outside the glass stretch into sheer cliffs, disappearing into a darkness so complete it seems endless. It is not emptiness, but something heavier, as though the black itself has weight pressing in, smothering every trace of the world above. Jagged ridges loom suddenly and vanish just as quickly. Slopes of sediment cascade downward, their surface undisturbed by current or storm. This is a stillness unlike any other, not the stillness of calm waters, but the stillness of a grave, for here no wind reaches, no waves disturb. It is the stillness of a world sealed off from time, and yet, even in this silence, there are watchers. Out of the dark comes the flash of something vast, a shape too quick to be seen in full. A trail of faint bioluminescence follows, curling like smoke in the current before vanishing. Some speculate of giant amphipods, others of creatures we have yet to name. What is certain is that the abyss guards its secrets well, revealing only fragments. Never the whole dot at 9,000 meters, The pressure outside exceeds anything our minds can hold. It is said that if a human body were exposed here, it would collapse in an instant, crushed before a single scream could form. Yet the creatures drifting beyond do not collapse. They float with calm indifference, their bodies engineered by eons of evolution to endure what we cannot. To them, the abyss is not terror, it is home. The submersible shudders slightly, not from failure, but from the weight of the world pressing against its hull. Every bolt. And inside, those who descend feel the hum of machinery, not as reassurance, but as a fragile tether. At any moment, a single weakness could mean silence eternal. Then the trench widens once more. A basin opens before us, vast and desolate, its floor stretching beyond the reach of light. The landscape is haunting, slopes like rolling dunes of ash, cliffs jagged as broken teeth. Here, only the oppressive knowledge, still more abyss. It is at this depth that explorers often describe a strange transformation of thought. Once sharp becomes dull. Time dissolves into the unbroken dark. What remains is awe, not the awe of beauty, but the awe of enormity. To be here is to face the scale of Earth, not as a concept, but as reality. To be reminded that our planet is not only the land we walk, the skies we breathe, but also this, a kingdom beneath, vast and untouched. At 10,000 meters, Challenger Deep begins to whisper its presence. The deepest known point on Earth, it lies still further down, waiting like the final chamber of a labyrinth. To know it exists is to feel its pull as though gravity itself deepens in these waters. The descent toward it is not just physical, but existential, a confrontation with the edge of what can be known, what can be survived. And so, the first chapter closes not with arrival, but with anticipation. Ahead lies a depth beyond imagination, where even the strongest submersibles risk failure, where silence becomes absolute, and where the ocean itself seems to ask a question: how far will you go? The lights dim against the void, and the trench swallows us further. The last whispers of surface memory are gone. Here, light has no meaning. At these depths, night is not an interval, it is the only reality. And yet, paradoxically, within this endless dark, a kingdom begins to reveal itself. For a moment, it feels like emptiness, black pressing against black, an ocean stripped of color, form, and sound. But then the first sparks appear. Tiny pinpricks, faint at first, then gathering, drifting like constellations across an infinite sky. They are creatures, fragile, radiant, carrying lanterns of their own design. Some blink in staccato bursts, like messages written in Morse across the water. Others glow with steady patience, pale blues and greens, casting a ghostly shimmer that illuminates nothing but themselves. It is easy to mistake this for stillness, for silence, but this kingdom is alive. Lanternfish swarm in countless numbers, their scales glittering faintly as they move through the abyss. Each flash is both lure and signal, a language we cannot yet decipher. Patterns of survival inscribed in bursts of light. Deeper still, jellyfish unfurl their delicate bells, pulsing rhythmically, trailing tendrils that glow like burning threads. Some move like dancers, drifting slow and deliberate, while others dart suddenly, their bodies a burst of color in a sea of black. This is the paradox of the abyss, where all seems lost tonight. Life responds by becoming its own star. Predators drift among the lights, patient hunters in a land of scarcity. The anglerfish appears, grotesque, unforgettable, its mouth filled with jagged teeth, its body small and unremarkable, yet crowned with a glowing lure that dangles before its head. It sways the light gently, an imitation of life, until curiosity draws the unwary close. Then, with a sudden snap, silence swallows silence, but the angler is not alone. The gulper eel, long as a man and thin as a whip, drifts with a mouth that opens into a cavern. It, too, carries light along its body, flashes that pulse with eerie regularity. In these depths, food is rare, and the rules of survival are brutal. Lure, wait, consume. Every adaptation is a weapon, every glow a gamble, and yet there is beauty here, strange, unsettling beauty. Some creatures pulse in colors unseen on the surface, their bioluminescence not merely blue or green, but tinged with violet, red, even gold. Others seem almost ethereal, translucent bodies revealing beating hearts, churning stomachs, skeletal frames faintly outlined by inner light. To witness them is to see life as both fragile and eternal, reduced to its purest form, survival through adaptation. Scientists once believed the deep sea barren, too dark, too cold, too hostile to sustain anything beyond the simplest microbes. Yet here we are, surrounded by abundance. Not abundance as we know it, not forests or plains filled with countless forms, but abundance shaped by extremity. Each creature is rare, each sight fleeting, but together they form a kingdom as diverse and vibrant as any on the surface. Only here, every flicker of light is earned against impossible odds. The trench itself frames this kingdom. Walls rising like cathedral pillars, their edges lost in the dark. Sediments drift down like perpetual snowfall, feeding the creatures below, each grain a fragment of another world. The ocean above, teeming with life, rains its remnants down into this abyss. The dead feed the living, and the cycle of survival continues even here. At the edge of Earth's endurance, to drift through this kingdom is to feel both wonder and unease. Wonder at the revelation that life persists in the most unforgiving places. Unease at the realization that we do not belong here, that we are intruders in a world that survives without us. These creatures do not know us, do not need us. They are heirs to an empire older than memory, older than the sunlit seas we call familiar. The deeper we go, the brighter the kingdom becomes, not in the sense of illumination, but in the multiplication of lights, each flicker a signpost, each shimmer a proclamation. Life rules here. In a night eternal, creatures have crowned themselves with fire, but ahead waits more than light. Ahead waits the hunters larger still, the forms that drift at the edge of vision, vast shadows carrying their own galaxies of glow. If these smaller stars are the kingdom, what waits beyond may be its throne. The deeper we drift into the kingdom, the more its rulers reveal themselves. The tiny flickers of lanternfish give way to forms larger, stranger, more commanding. Here, the lights are not scattered but deliberate beacons in the dark, signals of power, survival, and dominance. A shadow glides past, vast and silent. For a moment it seems the trench itself has moved, but then the outline sharpens. A giant squid. Its arms stretch outward, long as corridors, each lined with suckers armed with serrated teeth. Its body pulses faintly. In this world of silence, the squid is both hunter and hunted. With arms that can coil around prey larger than itself, it strikes with terrifying speed. Yet even this giant lives under threat, for somewhere in the dark, Sperm whales patrol the borders of this kingdom, descending from the surface to wage their eternal battles. When these titans clash, the water becomes a theater of violence unseen by human eyes. Far below, another predator lingers. The viperfish, slender and sleek, drifts with needle-like teeth, too large to fit within its mouth. Its jaw hangs open, armed with weapons designed for a single strike. Along its body, tiny organs glow with eerie green light, drawing prey closer until it lunges in a flash of speed. Few creatures escape once caught in its bite. The viperfish embodies the law of this abyss, patience followed by violence. Not all are hunters. Some are guardians of stillness, their existence more subtle. The hatchetfish, for instance, hovers in schools, their silvered bodies reflecting faint light in a way that makes them vanish into the black. Their scales shimmer like blades, sharp and bright, earning them their name. They are not rulers by strength, but by invisibility, masters of survival through disappearance. As the vessel descends further, the trench floor rises suddenly in jagged spires. These ridges act as hunting grounds, ambush points for predators lying in wait. Bioluminescent lures dangle like false stars, shimmering with the promise of food. Smaller fish, drawn by hunger, dart closer, only to vanish into the maw of the angler or the coil of an eel. This kingdom does not forgive mistakes, and yet, for all its danger, there is beauty here, a beauty so stark its silence is thought. The lights scattered through the dark look like galaxies, each flicker a star burning in a void without sky. The trench, in these moments, feels less like Earth and more like the cosmos itself, a place where we drift not through water but through space. Perhaps that is why explorers describe the abyss not only as terrifying but as transcendent. It is a reminder that life, in all its forms, is not bound by our imagination. In the distance, movement stirs, slow, deliberate, immense. A creature emerges, its shape ghostly, its size staggering. It is a jellyfish, but unlike any seen in shallower seas. Its bell stretches wider than a man, its tentacles trailing like endless ribbons, glowing faintly at their tips. It moves not with urgency, but with solemn grace, drifting through the abyss like a drifting cathedral of light. In this moment, time itself seems to pause. For though the trench is a place of violence, it is also a place of wonder, where even the simplest movement becomes sacred. The kingdom thrives on contrasts, the brutal and the beautiful, the violent and the fragile. Each creature, from the smallest amphipod to the vast squid, plays a role in the endless cycle. Death feeds life, scarcity fuels innovation, silence gives birth to light. This is not emptiness. It is abundance written in shadows. Yet, even as we marvel, one truth presses against the glass. We do not belong here. The abyss tolerates our presence, but does not welcome it. We are not rulers of this kingdom, only witnesses, and as we watch, drifting through their world. For in this darkness, it is not humanity that reigns. It is life itself, stripped of comfort, stripped of mercy, but still enduring ahead. Deeper still lies the heart of the kingdom, where the lights are fewer but stranger, where survival has crafted forms beyond comprehension, where even the bravest explorers admit they felt not awe but dread. The trench narrows, pressing inward like the throat of the earth. Darkness grows thicker, almost tangible, a weight that presses on the hull. Every sound, every flicker of light feels amplified, as if the abyss itself is aware of us. We are intruders, moving into the sanctum of its rulers. Here, the creatures are fewer but stranger. Survival has shaped them into forms beyond our imagination. Each body, each organ, is a response to scarcity, a design for endurance where no sunlight will ever fall. From the rocks below, a shape rises, the gulper eel, its body, long and whip-like, trails endlessly behind it. Its head is swollen, grotesquely large, with a jaw that unhinges like a nightmare. It drifts forward, its mouth yawning open wider than its body, ready to engulf anything unfortunate enough to cross its path. When prey wanders near, the eel swallows not just the body, but the space around it, dragging everything inward. In this kingdom, hunger is not measured in meals, but in survival for weeks, even months on a single catch. Nearby, something flickers with deceptive beauty. A cluster of comb jellies drifts like shards of living glass. Their bodies ripple with waves of rainbow light, as if they carried fragments of auroras stolen from the sky. Unlike predators, they possess no teeth, no lures, only patience. Their long, sticky tentacles trail invisibly behind them, ensnaring anything small enough to drift too close. What looks delicate is, in truth, a snare. Yet deeper still, patience becomes power. A creature emerges from the rock itself, a chimera, ghost-like and ancient. Its skin gleams pale, almost translucent, its eyes vast and lidless. These are not the eyes of a predator, but of a watcher, a creature that has seen ages pass. Descended from sharks, older than dinosaurs, the chimera carries the weight of prehistory. In its presence, one feels the trench, not as a place of the present, but as a museum of the Earth's forgotten past. The further we travel, the more alien the kingdom becomes. Shapes defy our sense of symmetry, bodies coiled into spirals, jaws turned inside out, fins glowing like lanterns. Evolution here is not bound by beauty or balance, but by necessity. A fish with a transparent head, its eyes locked upward inside its skull, scanning for silhouettes of prey against the faintest glow above. A worm that blooms with feathery red plumes, feeding not on flesh, but on chemical heat from vents below. A shrimp that carries a light organ like a torch, swinging it to confuse predators, and then silence. Not the silence of distance, but of absence. The lights fade, the creatures retreat. The trench floor widens into a plain of silt, broken by spires of rock that drip with strange forms. This is no ordinary seabed. It is a graveyard dot here. Bones lie scattered, ribs of whales, jaws of fish, spines of forgotten giants. They settle slowly from the world above. Each carcass becomes a cathedral of death. Worms without mouths bore into the bones, feeding on lipids locked within. Crabs scuttle over remains, tearing at the last scraps. Fish circle slowly, cautious of predators that may lie in wait. Even in death, life endures, yet, among the graveyard, we see something stranger still, an organism that blurs the line between plant and animal. A colony of siphonophores drifts like a chandelier of living glass, longer than a whale, its body made of countless individuals functioning as one. Some sting, some feed. Together, they form a single entity, a democracy of necessity. It is not a ruler in the sense of power, but in its scale. Here, size is authority, and the siphonophore rules by sheer immensity. And in this moment, a realization emerges. The kingdom of the trench is not ruled by a single species, not by dominance alone, but by adaptation. Each ruler reigns only in its moment, the squid in ambush, the eel in hunger, the whale when it descends. No throne is permanent here. Rule is temporary, fleeting, fragile. Power belongs not to the strongest, but to those who endure. Still deeper, beyond the plane of bones, a faint glow rises from the horizon. It is steady, unwavering, not the flicker of fish or jelly, but something older, the vent fields. Chimneys of black smoke rise from the seafloor, belching minerals and heat into the abyss. Around them, life blooms in impossible abundance. Crabs, worms, clams, all thriving not on sunlight but on chemistry. Here, the kingdom transforms again, not a place of hunger and scarcity, but of strange plenty. A reminder that even in the deepest dark, life finds not only survival, but prosperity ahead. The trench plunges further, toward the realms where pressure would crush steel, where light itself is a stranger. What rulers await us there remain unknown, glimpsed only in fragments, myths told by shadows on sonar screens. We drift onward. Deeper still, the glow ahead does not fade. It grows, spreading across the darkness like a secret fire. Towers rise from the seafloor, vast chimneys built not by hands, but by the earth itself. From their mouths pour clouds of black smoke, rich with minerals torn from the planet's heart. These are hydrothermal vents, the breath of the deep. Where most of the ocean is barren, these vents are sanctuaries, places where the impossible becomes routine. Around the vents, life gathers in improbable density. Creatures swarm here, as if drawn to a beacon. Crabs clamber over each other in pale armies, their shells ghostly white, their claws constantly in motion. Tube worms rise in colonies, tall as trees, their bodies sheathed in ivory casings, their crowns blooming with red plumes. They feed on bacteria that thrive in the heat and chemicals, not on light. Here, life is rewritten. No sun, no photosynthesis, only chemistry. Fish circle the vents, strange in form and pale in color, feeding on the swarms of smaller creatures. Mussels cling to the rocks, clustered in thick carpets, while shrimp gather in dense clouds, their bodies glowing faintly with the reflection of the vent's warmth. It feels almost like stumbling upon an oasis in a desert, abundance where there should be only emptiness, but this abundance has a cost. The same heat that nurtures can also destroy. The water around the vents can scald hotter than boiling, yet only a few meters away it is freezing cold. This razor edge of existence is where these creatures live, on the border between life and death. Each vent is a world unto itself, fragile and temporary. When it collapses, the kingdom built upon it vanishes. Beyond the vents, the trench deepens. The plain gives way to a slope so steep it feels like falling. Pressure mounts, crushing, relentless. Even the hardiest submersibles strain here. The walls of the trench are scarred. The earth's bones are bare, exposed by forces too immense for us to truly comprehend. Here life grows sparse again. What survives does so by becoming almost invisible. Transparent fish glide with slow, deliberate movements, conserving energy with every flick of their fins. Worms burrow deep into the sediment, hidden from sight, feeding on microscopic life. Small crustaceans drift like particles of dust, carried by unseen currents, yet sometimes shadows move that defy explanation. Shapes larger than whales, drifting at the edge of vision, vanishing before instruments can confirm them. Some believe these are simply tricks of light, illusions created by the mind in the crushing dark. But others whisper of undiscovered giants, creatures that have evaded us for centuries, rulers of the trench that exist beyond proof, the deeper we go. The more the trench begins to feel less like a place and more like a threshold. The water presses harder, the cold bites sharper, and silence becomes absolute. Even sound seems hesitant here, swallowed before it can travel. It is a silence that borders on holy, a silence that forces us to confront not only the abyss, but ourselves. At the very floor of the trench, almost 7 miles beneath the surface, we find the last kingdom. The seafloor stretches out, flat and endless, cloaked in a layer of fine silt. Every step, every current leaves a mark that lingers for years. Life is minimal, scattered, fragile. Small amphipods scurry through the grains, their bodies translucent. Worms emerge, feed, and retreat. A snailfish, pale and delicate, glides through the stillness, its body built not for power, but for resilience. It is the highest predator here, not because of its strength, but because it has endured what nothing else can, and yet, even here, the abyss holds its secrets. In recent years, faint traces of DNA have been found in these depths, genetic fingerprints of creatures we have never seen. Perhaps giants do exist here, hidden beyond our reach, moving in ways that avoid our eyes. Perhaps the trench holds rulers we cannot yet name, sovereigns of silence. As we hover above this final plane, one truth becomes clear. The trench is not empty. It is alive, endlessly, defiantly alive. From vents blazing with chemical fire, to graveyards of whales, from rulers of teeth and light, to ghosts of bone and shadow. The abyss is a kingdom without end. We rise slowly, leaving the floor behind. But the feeling lingers that we are watched, that something vast has slipped just beyond our sight. The trench does not reveal all its rulers in one journey. It never has. It never will. The kingdom remains, waiting. The abyss has no seasons, no dawns, no dusks. It is eternal night, and within this night, every creature lives on the edge of hunger. Here, survival is not measured in years, or even in days, but in moments. One moment. The next, you are hunted. The eternal battle begins with silence. A fish drifts, motionless, conserving energy. Its body is translucent, its organs barely visible, its shape designed to vanish into the black. It waits for something smaller to pass, a speck, a flash, a movement. Yet, as it waits, something larger waits for it. This is the cycle of the trench. No creature is beyond danger. No creature is without fear. Predators here do not chase. They cannot. To waste energy is to invite death. Instead, they lure, they trap, they ambush. The anglerfish dangles its glowing orb, a false promise of safety in the dark. Tiny fish, desperate for food. The predator wins, not through strength, but through deception. Other hunters wield patience as their greatest weapon. The gulper eel floats in silence, its body limp, appearing almost lifeless. Hours pass. Then, when prey drifts near, its jaw snaps wide, swallowing not just the victim, but the water around it. Hunger is answered in a single strike. Days of waiting are paid for in seconds, but predators, too, must be wary. In the abyss, even the hunters can fall prey. A small squid flashes its lights, darting through the dark. It chases a fish, winding, weaving, its tentacles poised. But from below, a shadow rises, the long body of a larger squid, its arms stretching outward. In an instant, hunter becomes hunted. The smaller squid struggles, its lights flickering wildly. But it is dragged down into the dark, vanishing like a star swallowed by night. This dance is endless. For every strike, For every hunter, a larger one lurks. The trench does not forgive arrogance. It rewards only caution, patience, and luck. Even scavengers are caught in the struggle. Crabs pick at the remains of a fallen whale, tearing fragments from bone. They believe themselves safe in the feast of death. But shadows gather. A swarm of amphipods, countless in number, rushes in, overwhelming everything in their path. They cover the carcass like a living tide, stripping it down to nothing. The crabs retreat, too late. They are buried beneath the swarm, consumed by the very feast they sought. The abyss does not waste. Even the losers of the hunt become nourishment for others. Bones, scales, fragments, nothing is lost. What falls is claimed. What escapes will one day be caught. It is also cunning. Some creatures choose not to fight, but to deceive. The hatchetfish glides upward, its body shimmering with mirrored scales. From below, it vanishes, reflecting the faint light above, a phantom impossible to see. Predators scan the water, but the fish is gone, cloaked in invisibility. Its weapon is not teeth, but illusion. Others wield light as armor. A shrimp releases bursts of glowing fluid, blinding its attacker long enough to flee. Jellyfish flash in brilliant patterns, dazzling predators into hesitation. Even the weakest have tools, weapons forged not in strength, but in cleverness. Still, for every trick, there is a response, or every defense, a counter. Evolution sharpens both predator and prey in equal measure, locking them in a war that has lasted millions of years. This war is quiet, invisible to us, fought not with roars or cries, but with flashes of light, sudden strikes, and silence. Always silence, and within that silence lies a truth. The abyss is not cruel. It does not hunt out of malice. It hunts because it must. Every creature here, from the smallest amphipod to the largest squid, is bound to the same law. To live, something else must fall. This is the covenant of the deep, written not in words, but in hunger. Yet, as we descend deeper into this battle, whispers rise of something greater still, a hunter not yet fully seen, a shadow that rules the trench with dominance unlike any other. We search the dark, waiting, watching, wondering what force could hold power in a realm where even the hunters are prey. In the trench, survival is never chance, it is design. Every creature is a weapon, shaped by the abyss itself. The ocean's eternal night is both battlefield and forge, and out of its silence, evolution has carved blades of brilliance and shadows of cunning. The first and most common weapon is light. In a place where no sunlight reaches, light becomes more than illumination. It becomes language, lure, camouflage, and weapon. Millions of years have refined it into forms as diverse as the creatures themselves. The anglerfish's lantern is the most infamous. It sways like a promise, a tender star. Prey, approach. In that instant, the hunter's jaw snaps shut, and darkness swallows the victim. Light here is treachery, a whisper of hope, ending in teeth. Other predators wield light as bait on a grander scale. Some squid pulse with patterns of shifting brightness, imitating schools of smaller fish. They do not simply lure prey, they create illusions, entire performances that convince the hungry to come closer. One moment, the glow looks like safety. The next, it becomes the last thing the victim will ever see. But light is not only a trap, it is also defense. A shrimp, startled by an oncoming predator, erupts in a burst of glowing fluid, scattering sparks through the water like fire across the night. The predator halts, blinded, confused. In that hesitation, the shrimp flees. For the weak brilliance is escape. Even subtler are the creatures who vanish through light. The hatchetfish carries scales that reflect perfectly, mirroring the faint glow above. From below, it disappears, blending seamlessly with the ceiling of water. This trick, known as counter-illumination, makes the fish not just invisible, but untouchable. Predators scan the waters, searching, but the prey is no longer there. It has become the night itself, yet stealth goes deeper than camouflage. Some creatures become living ghosts. Transparent squid drift through the dark, their bodies nearly invisible, their organs faintly pulsing within like embers inside glass. Others have lost pigmentation entirely, their pale bodies blending into the void. Here, invisibility is not luxury, it is survival. But not all weapons shine or hide. Some are crueler still. In the abyss, size can be distortion. The gulper eel's jaw unhinges into grotesque proportions, swallowing prey larger than itself. The stoplight loosejaw possesses a mouth lined with long needle-like teeth, hinged in such a way that prey cannot escape once bitten. Perhaps the most chilling of all is the viperfish. Its teeth are so large that they do not fit inside its mouth, instead curving upward along its face like daggers strapped to a skull. It hangs in silence, a thin ribbon of flesh in the dark. When prey approaches, the viperfish strikes with blinding speed, impaling its victim on teeth that seem forged for cruelty. These weapons are not accidents. They are the abyss, speaking through flesh, saying, "You will endure or you will vanish." And yet, for all the predator's craft, prey too are armed. Amphipods, small as grains of rice, swarm in numbers so vast they overwhelm creatures 100 times their size. A lone amphipod is nothing. 1,000,000 become unstoppable. Schools of fish move as one, twisting in perfect unison, their bodies flashing silver to confuse attackers. Unity becomes shield. Even deception can save the hunted. Some fish flash patterns of light across their bodies, not to lure, but to mimic. They become the shape of predators, larger than themselves, frightening away would-be hunters. In the abyss, pretending to be dangerous can be as effective as being dangerous. Every adaptation is precise, every detail honed across endless centuries. But this refinement comes at a cost. These creatures cannot leave their kingdom. The weapons that grant them survival here would fail in the light of the surface. The abyss gives and takes, and in doing so, it ensures its sovereignty. And still, deeper in the dark, whispers persist of hunters with weapons beyond light, shapes too large, movements too strange, powers too absolute. If such rulers exist, their tools remain hidden, waiting, silent, perhaps watching. The abyss has shown us its knives and mirrors, its lures and its shadows. But the battle is not yet over. Beyond weapons, beyond defense, lies the question of balance. How does this war sustain itself? How does a kingdom survive when every subject is both hunter and hunted? In the trench, the war is endless, yet it is not chaos. Beneath the violence, beneath the teeth and shadows, lies an order as old as the sea itself. Predator and prey are locked not in destruction, but in balance. Without one, the other cannot exist. Every life here begins with the smallest, microscopic organisms drift through the water, invisible to us, yet essential to all. They feed on chemical traces, on fragments of what falls from above, on heat and minerals that seep from vents. They are the foundation, the first spark in the abyssal chain. From them rise, the amphipods, the shrimp, the worms, countless in number, fragile alone, invincible together. Above them, hunters prowl. Small fish feed on the larger fish feed on the smaller. Squid patrol the shadows, their bodies swift, their arms laced with strength. Yet even they are hunted, dragged down by creatures greater still. And when those larger hunters fall, when even the titans of the trench die, their bodies return to the seafloor, feeding the smallest once more. The cycle closes. Death becomes life. It is a system so delicate that a single break could shatter it. If the smallest vanish, the hunters starve. If the hunters disappear, the prey multiplies unchecked, devouring resources until they too collapse. The abyss is a tightrope, stretched thin across eternity. Every creature balancing upon it, but balance here is not stillness. It shifts like the currents, sways like the tides. A swarm of amphipods might surge, overwhelming the trench with numbers. For a time they rule, their small jaws stripping carcasses bare, their bodies darkening the water. But as they flourish, predators follow, drawn by the abundance. The swarm shrinks, consumed, until it returns once more to fragile equilibrium. So it is with all creatures here. No dominance lasts, no victory is permanent. Each ruler reigns only briefly, its power checked by the rise of another. The abyss does not allow empires. It allows only survival. Even the mightiest hunters cannot escape this truth. A giant squid drifts through the black, its arms longer than ships, its beak sharp as stone. For now it commands fear. Smaller fish scatter before it. Even other predators yield. But in the distance, another shadow moves, larger still, a force that dwarfs the giant. It may be another squid or something unknown. The result is the same. The hunter's reign ends in silence. The balance is not mercy, it is necessity. For in this world of scarcity, no creature can be allowed to rule unchecked. The trench itself enforces its law, that all must take, and all must give. The abyss gives no crowns, no thrones, no permanence. It offers only the chance to endure one more day, one more hunt, one more heartbeat, and yet, within this balance lies something beautiful. Life here does not resist the law, it embraces it. Every creature plays its part without hesitation, without rebellion. The smallest amphipod accepts its fate as prey, just as the largest squid accepts that it too will one day be hunted. There is no cruelty in this, no malice, only rhythm, the rhythm of survival. Perhaps this is why the trench feels eternal. Not because its creatures live forever, but because their struggle does. The faces change, the forms evolve, but the pattern remains. Hunter, hunted, predator, prey. The wheel turns, and in turning, it ensures that life never ends. Yet we, intruders from above, struggle to accept this truth. We look for victors, for rulers, for creatures crowned in dominance. But the trench denies us that narrative. Here, there are no kings, only survivors, and survival itself is the crown. Still, one question lingers in such a fragile balance. What happens if something breaks it? If a creature rises too powerful, too efficient, too unstoppable, or if forces from above disturb the rhythm of the abyss? Would the balance hold, or would the kingdom collapse? The abyss does not answer. It keeps its silence, its secrets, its shadows. But the thought remains haunting as we drift deeper into its heart, at the far edges of vision, where even the strongest beams of our lights fade into nothing. The abyss hides its giants. These are not creatures of fragile patience or clever disguise. They are forces, apex predators, built not for balance but for dominance. In their presence the trench bends. The first we glimpse is the giant squid, long whispered of in sailors' tales, now revealed in truth. Its body stretches longer than a bus, its arms lined with suckers rimmed with hooks. Each movement is slow, deliberate. It does not chase prey, it engulfs it, wrapping the dark in coils of flesh and dragging victims into the crushing embrace of its beak. This predator is not elegant, it is not cunning. It is raw power, sharpened by hunger and pressure. But even the giant squid is not beyond fear. For where it drifts, so too may follow its rival, the sperm whale. These titans of the surface plunge miles into the abyss, lungs compressed, bodies armored in blubber, their jaws wide and strong. When they meet the giant squid, flesh meets flesh, teeth clash against tentacles, scars are carved into bodies that will return to the surface as evidence of the battle. These duels are not witnessed, only guessed, pieced together from the wounds of whales and the fragments of squid left behind. Yet the violence of such encounters marks the trench as a battlefield between titans. Not all apex predators are giants of flesh and muscle. Some rule with subtler power. The dragonfish, small yet merciless, drifts through the black with jaws lined in needle teeth. Its weapon is not size, but invisibility. It emits red light, a color invisible to most trench dwellers. With it, the dragonfish sees what others cannot, hunting prey blind to its presence. In a realm of darkness, it holds a light that no one else perceives, a private spectrum of dominance. Still stranger predators emerge from the shadows, creatures we have seen only in fragments, jaws flashing on camera, bodies vanishing before they are fully captured. The abyss refuses to reveal them entirely, offering glimpses like myths, half-believed, a shadow longer than any known fish, moving with deliberate grace, a form with teeth wider than its body, drifting beyond the reach of our instruments. Some dismiss these as distortions, errors of sonar, yet others believe they are rulers still undiscovered, apex hunters that have evaded us through silence and shadow. What binds these predators together is not just their power, but their rarity. They do not swarm. They do not multiply endlessly. Their reign is singular, their presence scattered across the vastness. To encounter one is not routine, but extraordinary. They are kings and queens of solitude, sovereigns of silence. The abyss enforces this solitude. Resources are scarce. Even the greatest cannot feast endlessly. To dominate too much is to starve. Thus the apex predator must be both conqueror and ascetic, taking only what is needed, vanishing back into the dark. It is a throne built on restraint as much as power, and yet their presence changes everything. Prey move differently in waters known to harbor giants. Smaller predators hunt with caution. Even scavengers at whale falls sense the risk, fleeing when shadows pass too near. The apex predator reshapes the behavior of the trench, its dominance echoing beyond each individual kill. But the greatest weapon of these rulers is not their teeth, their size, or their stealth. It is fear. Fear ripples outward like a current, guiding the actions of thousands of creatures who never see the predator itself. It is fear that grants them dominion. Still, even at the summit, power is fragile. A squid may fall to a whale. A dragonfish may be caught unawares. Even the greatest shadows are prey to the abyss itself, the crushing pressure, the shifting earth. The silence that waits for all. We emerge from this chapter with no single ruler, no crowned emperor of the trench. Instead, we see a council of predators, each holding dominion in its own way. Some by size, some by cunning, some by fear. They form the apex. Together, they keep the balance below them, and beyond them, deeper, darker, lie questions, still unanswered. Are there creatures greater still? Predators, unknown, perhaps unimaginable. The abyss guards this secret well, cloaking its final rulers in silence. For now, the war continues. Predator and prey, light and shadow, survival and surrender. The kingdom endures, not because it is ruled by one, but because it is ruled by all. Darkness breeds more than creatures. It breeds stories. For as long as humans have stared into the ocean, they have wondered what lies beneath its surface. And when the sea refused to answer, the mind invented answers of its own. The abyss, silent, uncharted, infinite, became a canvas for human imagination. Ancient sailors spoke of monsters rising from the black creatures so vast they could drag ships into the deep. The Norse whispered of the kraken, a beast of tentacles and hunger. Pacific islanders told of Tangaroa, the ocean god who ruled from the unseen depths. And in every tale, one truth remained: the trench was not empty. It was alive with forces beyond comprehension. They are born in glimpses, in fragments. A broken tentacle washed ashore, a whale carcass scarred with sucker marks. Strange sounds rising through the water, echoing in the hulls of wooden ships. Each piece became evidence, each silence an invitation to imagine the rest. Myths grew in the spaces between knowledge, where the abyss refused to yield its secrets. The ocean has always demanded faith. Sailors navigating without maps trusted the stars, but for the waters beneath them there were no guides. Every shadow in the waves became a warning. Every splash in the night carried the weight of threat. And when storms claimed ships without witness, survivors declared that monsters had done the work. In this way, the abyss wrote its myths with ink made of fear and loss. Even in the modern age, with sonar and submarines, the myths endure. In 1997, the world heard a sound, low, powerful, resonant, detected across thousands of miles of ocean. It was named the bloop at first. Scientists speculated, could it be the call of a creature larger than any whale, a beast hidden in the abyss? Later explanations tied it to shifting ice, yet the mystery lingers. Why did the sound resemble life more than fracture? Why did it awaken the same instinctive awe as the legends of old? Myths of the abyss are not confined to beasts alone. There are whispers of lost civilizations buried beneath the waves. Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, continents swallowed by water, their ruins resting at trench bottoms. The idea is persistent, not because evidence exists, but because the abyss is vast enough to hide it. In a realm we cannot see, imagination rushes to fill the void. Yet myths are not lies. They are reflections, distorted mirrors of truths we cannot fully grasp. The kraken was myth, but the giant squid is real. Sirens were legend, but strange songs of whales carry eerily human tones. Ghost ships, long dismissed as fantasy, echo the reality of derelict vessels drifting the seas, swallowed slowly by salt and time. Again and again, the abyss proves that myths are not inventions, but anticipations in this way. The trench is not just a place, it is a storyteller. It feeds us fragments and watches as we weave them into tapestries of gods and monsters. It leaves us half-clues, daring us to guess the whole. Its silence is not absence, but invitation, And perhaps that is the true power of abyssal myths. They remind us of our limits. They humble us. In a world where satellites map planets, where machines reach Mars, we still cannot say with certainty what waits in our own oceans. Myths thrive where knowledge ends. They are the poetry of ignorance, the art of wonder. From ancient scrolls to modern horror films, from sailor chants to internet forums, the myths persist, adapting, shifting, growing stronger with each retelling. The abyss is not just darkness, it is narrative. It is a stage on which humanity projects its fears, its hopes, its hunger for mystery. As we begin to peel back its layers with science, we discover that the myths may never vanish. They may transform, but they will endure. For even if we map the trench, scan every depth, and name every creature, the ocean will always hold something just beyond reach. A sound enough to spark a story, enough to birth another myth. If myths are stories born of fragments, then phenomena are the fragments themselves, those events that refuse to fit neatly within science, that flicker between explanation and enigma. The abyss is full of them. Strange sounds, impossible lights, movements too vast, too sudden, too deliberate to belong only to nature as we know it. Sound is the first mystery. The ocean is a world of echoes where every vibration carries for miles. Whales sing shrimp, crackle tectonic plates, shift with groans of stone. Yet amid these familiar voices, there are intrusions. The bloop was only the most famous, a thunderous call heard across the Pacific, loud enough to dwarf even the songs of blue whales, later in other corners of the ocean. Hydrophones recorded upsweep, whistle, Julia, each sound distinct, each without a confirmed source. Some stretch for hours, others rise and fall like breath. Ice and geology are the common suspects, but to the human ear, they sound alive, purposeful, haunting. Listening to them feels like overhearing conversations meant for no one to understand. Then there are the lights. In a place without sun, bioluminescence is life itself, but at times it behaves in ways beyond survival. Submarines have reported vast flashes, sheets of brilliance that erupt across the trench, illuminating miles at once. Not the glow of a single creature, but a collective pulse, like the seabed itself, is alive. What triggers these displays? Communication, or some unknown form of energy still hidden from us? In such moments, the abyss feels less like an ocean and more like a living sky. Each flash a star in a secret constellation, and still, there are shapes, colossal shadows, caught on sonar, larger than the largest known whales, moving with intent, then vanishing. Some claim errors, artifacts, misreadings, yet the ocean leaves room for doubt. For every giant squid discovered, there were centuries of denial. For every coelacanth pulled from the depths, there were decades of certainty that it was extinct. Science moves cautiously, but the abyss does not wait for permission to reveal itself. Even the geology here feels alive. Hydrothermal vents spew superheated water, rich with chemicals, creating oases where entire ecosystems thrive in darkness. Yet some vents flare unexpectedly, glowing hotter than predicted, their plumes forming strange towers that rise like cathedrals. Elsewhere, methane seeps bubble from the floor, igniting brief chemical reactions that shimmer with ghostly flames in the black. These are not creatures, but they feel alive, breathing, pulsing, shaping the kingdom above them. To witness such phenomena is to be caught between awe and fear. The ocean does not behave as land does. On land, we are used to light coming from the sun, sound from the air, movement from things we can see. But here, light erupts from bodies we cannot name, sound comes from nowhere, movement belongs to shadows we cannot follow. The rules shift, and in that shift, imagination floods the gaps. It is easy to see how myths persist. When sailors of old heard echoes beneath their hulls, they imagined monsters. When modern hydrophones record the bloop, the same instinct stirs, not knowledge, but story. Something in us is wired to translate mystery into narrative, to give shape to what resists explanation. In this way, the abyss is not only a frontier of science, but of the human mind, and perhaps that is why these phenomena feel so unsettling. They are reminders that we do not control this realm. Our satellites can map planets, but our instruments strain to capture whispers from our own oceans. We may tame rivers, chart mountains, light up cities, but here in the abyss, we remain outsiders. We listen, but we do not understand. We see, but we cannot name. We reach, but the ocean recedes further still. What if these phenomena are not anomalies, but the language of the abyss itself? Sounds as sentences, lights as messages, movements as gestures. If so, then we are not explorers, but eavesdroppers, intruding upon a conversation billions of years old, a dialogue between earth and water, stone and life, silence and sound, a dialogue we may never truly decipher. And yet, it is this not knowing that keeps us here. The mysteries are not obstacles, but invitations. They pull us deeper, asking us to wonder, to imagine, to fear. In the trench, phenomena become myths, and myths become truths waiting to be unveiled. The boundary blurs, and in that blur lies the essence of the abyss. It cannot be solved, only experienced. Ahead lies not just sound or light, but stories carried through generations. Myths written on waves, sung in whispers, carved into the memories of those who dared to sail into the unknown. The abyss does not only produce phenomena, it produces legends. Long before instruments reached into the trench, the ocean had already entered human memory. Across cultures, across centuries, the sea was not just water, it was a boundary, a mystery, a presence that demanded reverence. The abyss, though unseen, haunted the imagination, shaping legends that endure even now. Among the Polynesians, the ocean was not a void, but a living god. Tangaroa ruled its depths, his moods shaping storms, his silence guiding calm. To sail across the Pacific was not to escape the abyss, but to journey through his domain, trusting that the invisible powers below would allow passage. For them, the ocean was a parent, but also a judge. Its depths were not empty, but full of spirit, intention, and will in Greek lore. The sea god Poseidon reigned with his trident, but beneath him lingered even darker forces. Homer's epics spoke of Scylla and Charybdis, monsters that guarded straits with hunger and violence. To pass too close was to vanish, ship and crew swallowed whole. These tales, terrifying as they were, held truths, whirlpools strong enough to tear apart vessels, hidden predators capable of dragging men into black water. The myths clothed reality in metaphor. Yet the foundation was always the same. The abyss was merciless, that the Norse whispered of Jarmungandr, the world serpent, coiled in endless loops beneath the seas. Its stirring would bring earthquakes, its rising would signal the world's end. In these stories, the abyss was not merely a place, but a reservoir of apocalypse, a reminder that beneath the order of the world lay chaos waiting to break free. And so, for those who lived close to the water's edge. The abyss was both cradle and grave, a place that could nourish with fish or devour with fury, even in the Atlantic. Sailors carried whispers of Atlantis, a civilization too proud. Round by the ocean, its remains hidden in the deepest chasms. Whether it was a moral warning or a lost history, the myth survived because the abyss was vast enough to make it plausible. In an ocean so deep that light itself perished, why not imagine towers and temples preserved in eternal night? The trench gave space for the imagination to build cities no diver would ever find, but legends were not confined to ancient times. Even in the age of steel and steam, the abyss remained a source of dread. In the 19th century, as whaling ships returned, scarred by battles with colossal squid, the kraken surged back into popular fear. Drawings showed tentacles wrapped around masts, dragging entire vessels beneath. Some dismissed it as sailors' exaggeration, yet the scars on whale flesh told another story. Once more, myth and truth blurred, each feeding the other. The abyss also shaped folklore in subtler ways. Fishermen told of ghost lights dancing upon waves, perhaps bioluminescence, perhaps the spirits of drowned men. Stories spread of phantom ships, sails tattered yet crewless, gliding silently until they vanished into mist. And in every harbor, warnings echoed, "Do not anger the sea. Do not speak ill of the waters. Do not look too long into the black." These were not superstitions born of ignorance, but of respect, hard-earned across generations. What unites these legends is not only fear, but intimacy. Humanity has always lived on the edge of the abyss, feeding from it, traveling across it, burying its dead within it. It is not a stranger, but a neighbor, vast, dangerous, yet familiar enough to be woven into culture. To this day, children hear tales of mermaids, leviathans, or cities below the waves. They may laugh, but the laughter is nervous, for the sea still holds its silence. The abyss, then, is more than a trench. It is a mirror reflecting human hopes and terrors. It tells us about ourselves, our longing for discovery, our fear of annihilation, our belief that the world must hold mysteries greater than we are. Myths and folklore are not fabrications, but testaments. They prove that for as long as the abyss exists, humanity will not accept it as only stone and water. It must be something more, a stage for gods, a prison for monsters, a grave for empires, and still, even as science peels back its shadows, the legends cling. For every kraken explained as a squid, another question rises. If the squid is real, what else might be? If whales sing in haunting songs, could sirens not have been their echo? If sounds like the bloop erupt from the abyss, is it so impossible that the sea may still shelter giants? The myths endure not because they are true, but because they might be, and in the abyss might is enough. But folklore is only one layer. Beneath it lies something deeper, not only stories, but secrets, fragments of truth too strange for easy myth. Strange disappearances, vessels lost without trace, encounters that leave survivors unable to describe what they saw. These are not legends, but reports etched into the record of exploration itself. For all our satellites, our submarines, our charts and maps, the abyss still claims what it wants. Ships vanish, signals fade, machines descend. The modern age, with its technology and precision, has not silenced the mysteries. It has only recorded them with sharper detail. Take the disappearances. The ocean has always swallowed vessels, but some losses carry the echo of something more. In 1968, a Soviet submarine, K-129, disappeared in the Pacific. The official cause remains uncertain: accident, explosion, collapse. But its wreck lay hidden for years at a depth few dared to reach. When it was finally discovered, the secrecy surrounding its recovery only deepened the questions. What really happened in those crushing depths? Mechanical failure, or something the abyss itself authored? Other vessels never leave a trace. Fishing boats vanish with crews that never send a distress call. Cargo ships drift, found empty, their radios intact, meals still half-eaten, as if life itself had been stolen mid-breath. These ghost ships fuel speculation, mutiny, or the sea itself. Skeptics look for reason, but believers look for pattern. Both find only fragments. Pilots, sailors, and divers have reported things they cannot explain. Massive shadows passing beneath, larger than any known whale. Lights that dart with speed beyond machinery. Vibrations that hum through the hull. Instruments sometimes fail without cause. Compasses spin. Sonar returns voids where matter should be. Each report is documented, analyzed, debated, and then archived. Unanswered. Technology has taken us deeper, but it has also revealed more strangeness. Remote have captured glimpses of organisms too vast to film entirely, disappearing before cameras can adjust. In 2012, explorers recorded a pale, gelatinous form, drifting for several minutes before vanishing into darkness. Some speculated it was a giant jellyfish, others a new species altogether. To this day, its identity is unresolved. Even the machines themselves behave strangely in the abyss. Probes return scarred, their surfaces etched as if by contact with something rough, something alive. Cameras malfunction at the exact moments when anomalies occur. Batteries drain faster than predicted, as though something in the trench feeds on energy itself. Engineers offer technical explanations, but the consistency of failure at certain depths gnaws at certainty. And then there are the sounds. Even after the bloop was attributed to ice, many sounds remain unexplained. Hydrophones record roars, thuds, pulses that seem deliberate, repeating, patterned. To the human ear, they suggest intent, they suggest voice. The abyss does not speak in words, yet sometimes it feels as though it speaks. When it does, we are forced to remember it is not silent, only waiting to be heard. These mysteries are not confined to science or sailors. They enter culture, fueling the modern myth. Forums overflow with speculation about abyssal creatures, about governments hiding discoveries too terrifying to reveal. Some claim the ocean shelters species older than humanity, guardians of the planet's deepest layers. Others whisper of entrances to hidden realms, voids that connect through tunnels beneath continents. Fantastic though they sound, such theories endure because the abyss has not been proven otherwise. Silence is fertile ground for imagination, but perhaps the greatest mystery of all is this: why do we keep returning? Why do explorers, knowing the danger, descend again and again into a place that does not welcome us? Maybe because mystery is irresistible. The unknown is both danger and magnet, pulling us closer even as it warns us away. Each disappearance, each shadow, each unexplained phenomenon only sharpens the pull. The abyss is a riddle, and humanity cannot walk past a riddle without trying to solve it. And yet, solving may never come. For every mystery explained, new ones surface. For every creature named, for every wreck discovered, another vessel vanishes without trace. The abyss is not a puzzle with answers. It is a continuum of unknowns, a reminder that Earth itself still holds regions beyond mastery. As we listen to these stories of ghost ships, lost submarines, unrecorded giants, one truth becomes clear. The myths are not only ancient, they are alive, still being written. The abyss is not finished with us, and deeper still, past the silence, past the stories, lies something more profound. Not myth, not legend, but a presence. Something the ancients called gods. Something we call ecosystem. Something that may be neither or both. The abyss holds not just mysteries of the sea, but mysteries of existence itself. The myths endure because they must. The abyss does not allow completion, only continuation. It does not offer endings, only echoes. And so humanity, standing at the water's edge, continues to tell stories, stories of what might dwell below, of what might whisper in the silence, of what might still rise from the depths to meet us. Every generation has its monsters. The ancients feared gods and serpents. Sailors feared the kraken. Today we fear extinction, collapse, the fragile balance of life itself, and always the abyss becomes the vessel for those fears. It is the place where we store the things too vast for land, too heavy for sky, a void large enough to hold all that we cannot bear to face in daylight. In that sense, the trench is not simply geography, it is psychology. It is myth itself, alive. Yet myths are not chains, they are bridges. They link us to our past, to the long line of humans who stared into waves and felt the same unease we feel now. When we imagine leviathans, we stand beside sailors who preyed on storm-lashed decks. When we speak of ghost ships, we echo the whispers of fishermen who feared glowing waters. When we ask about Atlantis, we share the same longing as philosophers who dreamed of perfection lost. The myths of the abyss are not isolated fantasies. They are inheritance, passed from mouth to mouth, memory to memory, a chain unbroken by time, and perhaps they endure because they serve a deeper function. Myths are teachers. They warn us of arrogance, of venturing too far without respect, of assuming mastery where humility is required. Atlantis falls because of pride. The kraken drags down those who trespass without caution. The sirens lure those who cannot resist temptation. These stories, layered in fear and wonder, are not about the abyss alone. They are about us, about the choices we make when we stand before the unknown. Science, in its own way, tells myths too. The discovery of giant squid transformed kraken from fantasy to reality. The coelacanth. Each revelation reshapes the story, proving that what was once myth may yet become truth. The abyss teaches us that disbelief is dangerous, that to dismiss the improbable is to risk surprise. Myths prepare us for possibilities science has not yet named, and still, the greatest power of abyssal myths lies in their ability to keep mystery alive. In a world mapped by satellites and scanned by drones, where mountains and deserts are photographed from orbit, the trench remains one of the last untouched realms. Myths protect it, wrapping it in layers of legend that remind us not to reduce it to data points and charts. The abyss must remain more than measurements. It must remain unknowable. For in that unknowable lies our wonder. When explorers return from dives into the trench, they often speak not only of what they saw, but of what they felt. An overwhelming sense of smallness, a silence that pressed against the mind, a presence they could not name. This presence is the same that ancient myths tried to capture, the same that folklore tried to explain, the same that modern stories still wrestle with. It is not merely fear of depth or darkness. It is an encounter with something older, larger, and more enduring than us. And so, the myths will never fade. They will change shape, yes. Tomorrow's Kraken may be a new creature discovered. Tomorrow's Atlantis, a city found beneath shifting seas. But the abyss will always resist completion, always leave enough shadow for story to bloom. Myths are the language through which the trench speaks to us. And as long as the abyss endures, so will its myths. We close this chapter not with answers, but with an invitation to listen, to imagine, to fear, to dream. The myths of the abyss are not warnings to stay away. They are reminders that even in an age of science, we still need mystery. They whisper that not everything must be solved, that some things exist to remind us of humility, of wonder, of the vastness we inhabit but cannot master. And so, as the myths echo through time, they tell us this: the abyss is not emptiness. It is story. It is memory. It is the voice of the earth itself, speaking in shadows and silence, daring us to keep listening. The abyss is not only a place, it is a reflection. When we look into its darkness, we are not merely peering at an alien world, we are confronting ourselves. The trench becomes a mirror, vast and unyielding, showing us truths we cannot always bear to face. At first, what it reveals is fragility. The pressure in the deep is crushing, far beyond what the human body can endure. Without machines, without layers of steel, we would be reduced to silence in an instant. We imagine ourselves masters of Earth, yet here we are reduced to trespassers, borrowing technology to glimpse a realm that rejects us. The abyss humbles us, reminding us that our dominion is small, our survival fragile, our place in the planet's story not central but temporary. And yet, in that fragility lies another truth: resilience. Life in the trench endures conditions we once believed impossible. Creatures thrive without sunlight, without warmth, with pressures that would shatter submarines. They do not merely survive, they flourish, building ecosystems where we thought none could exist. Each glowing lanternfish, each drifting jelly, each blind amphipod is a testament to life's refusal to yield. The abyss shows us that resilience is not the absence of hardship, but the adaptation to it for humanity. This is a lesson wrapped in shadow. We live in a time of change, of shifting climates, of uncertain futures. The abyss whispers that survival is not strength alone, but transformation. To endure is to bend, to evolve, to embrace the unknown with courage. It is to become like the creatures of the trench, not destroyed by darkness, but illuminated by it. The abyss also reflects time itself. Descend into its depths, and you enter not only space, but history. The trench is ancient, carved by tectonic forces that predate us by millions of years. Its silence is not emptiness, but memory, holding within it the record of Earth's violence and creation. Fossils lie preserved, species unchanged, for eons drift through its waters. Echoes of a world that existed before humanity dreamed. To look into the trench is to look backward, to see the persistence of life across eras, to realize that our age is but a moment in a story far longer than we can comprehend. And perhaps the most unsettling reflection the abyss offers is mystery itself. In a world increasingly mapped and explained, we hunger for answers, for certainty. Yet the abyss refuses to yield them. It gives fragments, half-truths, glimpses, enough to ignite wonder, never enough to satisfy. In doing so, it forces us to live with questions. What dwells in the dark? What moves in the shadows? What secrets lie beneath pressure and silence? These questions have no final answers, and perhaps that is the point. The abyss is not a puzzle to be solved, but a reminder that mystery itself has value. What does this mirror teach us? That we are fragile, resilient, fleeting, curious. That we belong not above the world, but within it, part of a continuum of life, stretching far beyond our brief moment. The trench, indifferent to our presence, still reflects our essence. It shows us our hunger for story, our fear of insignificance, our awe before the unknown. It teaches us humility, resilience, and reverence, qualities we too often forget in our pursuit of mastery, and still it leaves us unsettled. For to see ourselves in the abyss is to admit that we do not understand ourselves fully. We are as strange as the creatures that glow in its night, as unpredictable as the sounds that echo through its silence. The abyss does not explain us. It reminds us that explanation may never come, not because it hides monsters, not because it shelters myths, but because it holds a mirror to the human soul. It tells us what we are and what we are not. It tells us we are small, but capable of wonder, temporary, but able to dream, fragile. The abyss shows us that mystery is not something outside us. It is inside us, woven into the fabric of who we are. And as we linger before that mirror, we sense that the journey is not ending. The deeper truths of the abyss about life, time, and existence remain ahead, waiting. The abyss, though ancient, does not only speak of the past. It leans forward, whispering toward futures yet to come. To peer into its waters is to confront not only what has been, but what may be. For the trench is both a record and a prophecy. Its depths hold signs of Earth's tomorrow, as if the planet itself writes warnings in the language of currents, sediments, and silence. The deep ocean is the engine of climate, the regulator of heat. Every wave that laps against a shore, every breeze that bends a field of grass, carries within it the breath of the abyss. It is here, in cold currents that crawl along the seafloor, that carbon is buried, that heat is stored, that the rhythm of the atmosphere finds its anchor. Without the abyss, the Earth's surface would burn. Storms would rage unchecked. The thin film of life we know would wither. But now, that balance trembles. Human hands have reached into the deep without fully knowing what they touch. The gases we release above sink downward, dissolving into the sea, shifting its chemistry. The carbon we scatter is pulled into its waters, making them more acidic, eroding the shells of unseen creatures that form the base of its food webs. The warmth we generate spreads, sinking, disturbing currents that have flowed steady for millennia. The abyss absorbs our excess, but it is not infinite. It too can break. Here lies the great paradox. The place most remote from us is the place that sustains us most, and yet we treat it as distant, irrelevant, invisible. But invisible does not mean untouched. Already, fisheries dip into deeper waters as surface stocks collapse. Already, mining corporations set their sights on the metals that lie hidden in the trench's sediments, promising wealth while ignoring the cost. Each probe, each drill, each intrusion disrupts a system we do not yet understand. To disturb the abyss is to gamble with the planet's lungs. The creatures of the trench, strange and fragile, are sentinels of this change. Lanternfish migrate upward in billions each night, cycling nutrients between the abyss and the surface. Should they falter, entire ecosystems would collapse. Jellyfish blooms, once rare, grow more common, feeding on imbalance. And in the silence, We hear absences, species vanishing before we even learn their names. The abyss, once a cradle of endless endurance, now bears scars of a future shaped by us. And yet, even here, there is hope. What for the abyss does not speak only of loss. It shows us resilience, and it offers us time. The deep ocean operates in centuries, in millennia. Its changes are slow, its rhythms patient. If we act now, if we choose to protect rather than consume, it may yet absorb our mistakes and restore balance. But the longer we wait, the more its patience frays. There is a strange symmetry in this. Humanity once believed the abyss irrelevant, too far removed to matter. Now we know the truth. It is central. The fate of our cities, our harvests, our very survival is tied to the unseen flows of water beneath the waves. The abyss holds our future as surely as it holds our past, and so the trench becomes not only a mirror, but a teacher. It shows us that power is fragile, that balance is sacred, that the greatest dangers are often invisible. It reminds us that what we do in ignorance will return to us with certainty. We cannot poison the abyss without poisoning ourselves. We cannot strip its life without unraveling our own. But perhaps the abyss also teaches humility. For even as we threaten it, we cannot conquer it. No matter how many machines we build, how many probes we send, how many maps we draw, it will remain larger than our grasp. If the abyss endures our presence, it will not be because we mastered it, but because we learned to live in reverence with it. The question lingers. Sharp as the trench's edge, will we heed its warning, or will we turn away until it is too late? The abyss has seen ages pass before us. It will see ages after us. The choice is not whether it survives. The choice is whether we do. And in this silence, deeper than silence, the future breathes uncertain, fragile, waiting. The trench is not only a place on maps, not only a fracture in Earth's crust. It is also a metaphor carved into the human spirit. For when we speak of the abyss, we are not only describing depths of water and stone, we are describing the depths within ourselves. Every life contains an abyss, a space of unknowing, of shadow, of silence. It is the place where questions outnumber answers, where fear and wonder reside together, where meaning slips just out of reach. To confront the Mariana is to confront this inner trench, the places within us that we rarely dare to enter. Think of the darkness of the deep. It is absolute, yet in that blackness creatures glow. Tiny sparks of bioluminescence, fragile but unyielding, transforming despair into beauty. Is this not what we do in our own darkness? In grief, in uncertainty, in loneliness, we carry lights, faint but persistent. Memory, hope, love, like the anglerfish's lantern. They burn brightest where the night is deepest. The crushing pressure of the trench has its reflection in us too. Life presses upon us with weight, expectation, struggle, fear, yet we adapt as the abyssal creatures do. Some shrink inward, becoming smaller, conserving strength. Others grow stronger, their forms reshaped by force. We, too, bend under the weight of existence. Sometimes it breaks us, but often it forges us. The abyss within becomes not only a threat, but a crucible. And what of silence? In the trench, silence is near total, broken only by faint echoes, the groan of shifting earth, the call of unseen life. In our lives, silence is harder to find, drowned by the noise of days, yet silence is essential. In it, we hear what lies beneath the surface, truths we avoid, desires unspoken, fears unnamed. Silence is not emptiness, it is revelation. The abyss reminds us to listen, not only because it is alien, but because it is familiar. Its shadows resemble our own. Its mysteries echo the questions that haunt us. Who are we? Why are we here? What lies beyond the horizon of death, beyond the limits of time? The trench does not answer, but in refusing, it makes us confront the persistence of these questions within the abyss within us. Like the abyss beneath the waves is not something to escape, it is something to acknowledge. To deny it is to live shallowly, afraid of depths. To face it is to live fully, to accept that mystery and meaning are inseparable. Our inner abyss is the birthplace of art, of faith, of science, of love. From it rise the questions that drive us, the stories that define us, the courage that carries us forward. And so the trench becomes a metaphor for humanity's journey itself. We are explorers, compelled by the unknown, not only in oceans and skies. Every discovery outside mirrors a discovery inside. Every step into the unknown world is also a step into the unknown self. To seek the abyss is to seek who we truly are, but there is danger here too. For just as the ocean's abyss can crush, so can our inner darkness. We can drown in despair, lose ourselves in shadows, surrender to fear. That is why the bioluminescence matters. Those sparks in the trench remind us that in our own lives, light may take many forms. Kindness offered, truth spoken, courage shown. Small acts, but luminous. They do not erase the darkness. They transform it. The abyss within us will never disappear. It is part of being human, but perhaps this is not a burden. Perhaps it is a gift. Or without it we would not wonder. Without it we would not seek. Without it we would not become. The abyss teaches us that meaning is not found in escaping the dark, but in entering it, carrying light with us. And so the trench, vast and indifferent, becomes intimate. It reveals not only Earth's mysteries, but our own. In its shadows we see our fears. In its lights we see our hopes. The abyss outside and the abyss inside are not separate. They are mirrors, each reflecting the other. And as we gaze into both, we sense the journey is nearing its end, yet not an ending, but a passage. Something waits beyond, in the final silence of the deep. The trench, with all its silence and shadow, ultimately becomes a rehearsal for our deepest confrontation, the mystery of endings. Every descent into its black waters is, in a sense, a meditation on mortality. For what is death, if not an abyss of its own, unseen, unfathomed, a frontier that no light can penetrate? As we gaze into the depths, we feel a pull that is not merely curiosity, it is recognition. The abyss resembles the final passage all living things must face. We descend into darkness with no guarantee of return, not knowing what lies beyond. We send probes, stories, prayers, but certainty never comes. The trench becomes a mirror of that universal silence that waits for us at the edge of life. This is why the abyss unsettles us so profoundly. It does not threaten us with monsters or storms. It threatens us with reflection. In its blackness, we see our fear of vanishing, our dread of ceasing to be. And yet, like the creatures that glow in its void, we light torches against night, build vessels against pressure, tell stories against silence. We resist oblivion, not by escaping it, but by confronting it with meaning. Consider how civilizations have always imagined their own abysses. Ancient myths spoke of underworlds, seas of night, rivers without end. Every culture, in every time, has peered into darkness and tried to name it. The Mariana is not Hades, not Sheol, not the Styx, yet it stirs the same unease, the same awe. It is the physical form of an archetype, the world's reminder that beneath certainty lies shadow, and beneath shadow lies eternity. But perhaps the abyss does not only symbolize death, perhaps it symbolizes eternity itself. For in its silence, time stretches differently. Currents move in centuries, sediments settle in millennia. Creatures live in cycles beyond our measure. To step into the trench is to step outside the rhythm of days, into a slower, older pulse. This, too, resembles the eternity that waits beyond life, not an end, but a vastness, a silence, a continuation we cannot measure. We fear this eternity, but we long for it as well. The abyss awakens both impulses. One part of us recoils, terrified of being lost. Another part leans forward, drawn to wonder. What if the silence is not emptiness, but fullness? What if the dark is not nothing, but everything? The trench becomes not only a warning, but an invitation, and so we find ourselves standing on its edge, as on the threshold of life's last horizon. Do we dare descend? Do we dare let go of light, of certainty, of ground beneath us? These are the same questions we whisper when we contemplate death. The abyss does not answer, but it holds the questions faithfully, echoing them back until we learn to live with them. What, then, is the lesson? Perhaps it is this, that endings are not truly ends. The trench is not only a place of crushing pressure and eternal night, it is also a place of beginnings. Life there does not end with darkness, it emerges from it. Bioluminescence is born where the sun cannot reach. Ecosystems bloom where no warmth exists. Creation does not cease in the abyss, it transforms. Might death be the same? A transformation, not annihilation, a passage, not a void. The trench cannot tell us, but in its silence we sense the possibility. Just as life rises from darkness, perhaps meaning rises from endings. Just as the abyss holds worlds unseen, perhaps existence itself holds more than we can fathom. We return then to the mirror. The abyss shows us fragility, resilience, time, and mystery. But its final reflection is this, that endings and beginnings are woven together, indistinguishable. What we call final may be only a threshold. What we call silence may be a deeper kind of song. What we call darkness may be a cradle for light. And so, as the descent nears its close, we realize the trench is not a place of despair. It is a place of hope, though veiled, though wordless. It is the place that reminds us that mystery is not an enemy to be solved, but a companion to be embraced. For when the last horizon comes for us, for humanity, for Earth itself, but as a doorway, the trench does not end. Even as our descent draws to a close, its silence stretches onward, unbroken. The abyss is not a place we finish. It is a place that finishes us, reshaping how we see the world, how we see ourselves, how we see the horizon of existence itself. For in truth, the abyss has never been about discovery alone. It has been about transformation. We entered seeking knowledge, but what we found was reflection. We sought to conquer darkness, but what we found was light blooming within it. We thought we would map it, measure it, reduce it, but the abyss cannot be reduced. It is larger than us, older than us, and it will outlast us, yet still it calls. And this, perhaps, is its greatest mystery, that a place so hostile, so unreachable, inspires not only fear, but longing. We long to descend, to understand, to touch its silence. Why? Because deep down we recognize in it something of ourselves. The abyss is the part of the world we cannot tame, and therefore the part of the world that keeps wonder alive, wonder, that fragile flame. In a world mapped by satellites, in skies charted by telescopes, it is wonder that keeps us human, and it is the abyss that protects it, hiding creatures we have never seen, mysteries we cannot name, depths we cannot measure. It reminds us that no matter how much we learn, the story is never finished. No matter how far we go, horizons remain. Listen to the abyss, and you hear not silence, but invitation, an invitation to humility, to reverence, an invitation to remember that the earth is not ours alone, that we share it with life beyond imagination, that its rhythms run deeper than our lifetimes. An invitation to live not as masters, but as companions, walking lightly on a planet that will endure without us. And yet, the abyss also offers something more intimate. It offers comfort, for in its endless dark, it whispers that we are not alone in mystery, that just as the creatures of its night survive, so too can we, that just as light blooms in its silence, so too can meaning bloom in ours. The abyss is terrifying, yes, but it is also beautiful. It tells us that beauty and terror are not opposites, but companions, like night and day, death and life, silence and song. Perhaps this is why the abyss feels eternal. Not because it is infinite. Our refusal to stop wondering. As long as we live, we will descend into oceans, into skies, into the questions that haunt us. The abyss will always call, and we will always answer. And so, the journey does not end here. It never could. We leave the trench as we entered it with awe, with humility, with more questions than answers. But this is not failure. This is fulfillment. What for the abyss was never meant to be solved. It was meant to remind us that life is larger than understanding, that existence is richer than certainty, that the unknown is not an emptiness but a gift. Stand, then, at the edge of the trench one last time. Feel the pull of its silence, the weight of its shadow, the shimmer of its hidden light. Let it speak to you, not in words, but in presence. Let it remind you that wonder is endless, that mystery is eternal, that every horizon is only the beginning of another. For the abyss does not close, it waits. And as long as we walk this earth, as long as we dream, its eternal call will echo in the oceans, in the skies. In the silence within us, the abyss remains, and so does wonder.